Hi everybody, Jay Pace here from Providence Buyers Agents. Very excited to speak to you today. Today's presentation is actually a fact check on a presentation that we did in June 2020. And at the time of that previous presentation, there was a lot of fear and uncertainty. So as researchers and as buyers agents with almost 2 decades of experience just running Providence Property Group, we analyze the market and its potential outcomes. And if you haven't seen the video, I encourage you, jump on our YouTube page, go to it. It was called the 2020 Recession. And yeah, have a little bit of a look at that because it's a good video. So first, let's jump into it. Let's talk about the bin fire that was 2020. It was bad for some. It was good for some as well. It really depends on what end of the spectrum you're on. But I wanted to talk about what the experts said was going to happen. So experts... we all like to listen to them. We all love an expert. Unfortunately, there's too many of them. But basically, some of the information that I think is really important here is that I wanted to show you some of the thousands of ugly headlines that we saw during, this particular time of fear mongering. And I just grabbed some of these headlines here from April to November last year. 2020. 1.5 million Australians are in mortgage stress. Defaults are expected amid recession. Melbourne leads house price falls as other markets stabilise from coronavirus. The property market is bracing for the collapse in international student numbers. Price slumps set to hit Australian house prices. Falling house prices to cut spending. Victorian house prices to plunge as the economy loses billions, yada, yada, yada. All very, very negative, okay? Let's look at some of these a little bit closer. And feel free, look up these articles yourself. I've got all the titles there, all the headlines, so just have a quick look at them. So this one was from CBA, Sydney Morning Herald. House prices could fall 32% under prolonged slump. Now that was from CBA on May the 13th in 2020. Then... so May to, we've got September here, and we can see, just having a look at some of these dates, September, house prices to bounce back in 2021 after modest falls during coronavirus pandemic. CBA predicts. CBA expects smaller property price falls of 6%, revising their forecast upwards. That's a bit of a 180 that they did, from 32% down to only 6% down. And then they jumped up in February this year, and then they've said, actually, property prices may soar 16% over the next 2 years, CBA says. Property prices set to boom 16%. That's pretty crazy. I mean, we did a presentation here for ANZ Bank, and this was at their Martin Place head office. Beautiful building, very large. And we had about 250, 200 odd first home buyers that came to this presentation. We did this in late March of 2020. This is just before the first lockdown kicked in. So you couldn't do this anymore, having all these people sitting that close to each other. Simon Harris, who's our head of research, did a fantastic presentation on property cycles. Now, if you don't know about property cycles, jump on our YouTube page, please watch some of our videos on property cycles, because believe me, they will blow your mind just how predictable and robust these cycles are. At the end of the presentation, we got asked a lot of questions about corona, about pandemics, about recessions, etc. And we stood by our research, and we said, how robust they are and how we don't really think it's going to be a huge issue. Only a couple of weeks after that presentation, ANZ Bank came out with some pretty full-on headlines. ANZ Bank prepares for a second wave of distress in 2021. Post-virus property price bounce back is unlikely. And then this is the one that kind of got a lot of people thinking and very scared, which was struggling borrowers will need to consider selling their properties. So that was from ANZ Bank. That was, full on. Then after this, and this was, let's have a look here, November that year, ANZ came out and said, listen, perhaps we were too pessimistic regarding our property price calls. And then ANZ came out with a research report that they did with CoreLogic, which is Australia and New Zealand's largest property research house. And they came out with predictions of positive growth for 2021 by December 2021. So this was in November last year they did this. Then we started to see these these articles, these headlines change and become a lot more positive, optimistic. Sellers market as Australian property prices rise and buyers line up. Aussie house prices tipped to surge 15% post-pandemic. Even in the midst of a recession, Australia's housing continues along its merry way. Current property market calls for tactical aggression. Stimulus leads the way to housing recovery. Property prices to jump in Sydney 14% by 2023, in Brisbane 20%. These are all very, very different songs to what the banks were singing only less than 9 months ago. So what actually happened here is the important thing. Let's get rid of all the bull dust and let's look at actually the results. Now, this is a chart that I got for you from CoreLogic, and this is the cumulative change in capital city dwellings from March to January 2021. And I chose that range specifically because this is where a lot of the noise was for a lot of those articles. And Sydney and Melbourne are now the only capital city markets where values, were lower since the onset of COVID-19. But it's, they're both pushing out of this. I read only this week that both Sydney and Melbourne have breached their previous highs for property pricing. So it's just crazy. This is a really interesting chart because this shows you how COVID-19 compares to previous downturns that we've seen over the years. And I mean, I'll just point out a few of them. You've got the aftermath of the 87 stock market crash, which was 89 to 91. You've got the aftermath of the recession we had to have, which was 92, and that was 94, 95. The 2000 to 2001 tech wreck, what we had, the tech bubble, the bubble burst for the tech stocks. That was trillions of dollars lost. And then you had the World Trade Center attacks. So this is the aftermath of that. The GFC, 08, 09. So this is a lot of bad stuff that happened. And COVID is just those little dots that you can see, those two small sections there. So really, it did not have the profound negative effects that this market was expecting from all these experts in commerce. So where are we now? Well, currently to date, Australian residential real estate is worth $7.6 trillion. In the first quarter of this year, Australian residential real estate has grown by over $250 billion. And it's still worth more than Australian listed stocks, Australian superannuation, and commercial property combined. Okay. Now, these numbers change every single month. But here's just as to the last month, because we're just in the middle of March now. But this is the Sydney median dwelling values, and please feel free, pause the video, have a look at it. But you can always get this information if you just Google hedonic value index, CoreLogic hedonic value index, and they do a monthly report with all this data in there, and it's just great to read it and get some understanding. So it just shows you the median dwelling values for property all across Australia. It's also important to look at where the rental yields are as well, because as Sydney is the highest in regards to median dwelling value, it's also the lowest in regards to rental yields. And this is why we believe we're starting to see a large change in migration of local money in places like Sydney, Melbourne, to interstate purchases. So we think a lot of first home buyers are going to do the numbers, and sooner or later they're going to sit there and go, well, I'm just going to forfeit this first homeowner's grant, and I'm actually just going to get a better property, something that's going to make me more money somewhere else. Now, this chart shows that new listings are added to the market. Despite the relative uplift in new listings, the total stock on the market today remains 27.5% below the 5-year average of this time of the year. So this is making it much more difficult for buyers to find property, and this is why we're seeing a lot of people jumping on realestate.com, jumping on Domain, and realistically, they're going through all the properties that are available within about a day or two's time on their phone. And then there's nothing less, and they're just waiting for these alerts to come. And this is where having a buyer's agent like Providence comes in really handy, because when we go to an agent, they know we have obviously multiple clients, so this is going to create multiple transactions potentially for them, and also because our clients are qualified, because they've hired a buyer's agent, they're financially ready, etc. We get access to a lot of off-market opportunities that the regular Joe Blogs is not going to get access to in the market, which definitely does assist us. I mean, if you've ever gone to a property where it's gone up for an open and the next day it's sold, chances are you've had a professional probably beat you to it, somebody like Providence. Now, This is important because this question we get a lot. Why didn't the market crash? How can the banks get it so wrong? Well, you've got to look at a few things here. First of all, we had a stimulus package that was 3 times greater than the one passed during the 2008 GFC. JobKeeper wage subsidy was a godsend for a lot of people. We had tax cuts, cash payments, multiple property purchase grants, early access to super, historically low interest rates from ridiculous cuts that we saw, and mass bank deferments on loan repayments. They all softened the blow that COVID-19 and this recession should have brought to us. Now, property is resilient. The thing that I hear the most from talking to people is when they say to me, I'm just waiting for a pullback. And I've recently come up with a bit of an analogy that definitely at least makes sense to me. In the aviation industry, they've got what they call the POSR. So the POSR is the point of safe return. Basically where a plane takes off and it has enough fuel to then get to a midpoint where it could turn around and land safely. But if it goes past that POSR, it's not going to get to land. It's going to have to crash in water somewhere. So I find a lot of people hit this POSR where basically they go, oh, I'm not going to buy anything. This market's way too hot. I just can't get into this right now. I just think it's too hot. And then they jump in late and they go, okay, I'm going to start looking now. And then they get to a POSR where basically they get to a place where they go, oh, this market's too hot again. I'm going to jump out again. So they never land. They're constantly getting into the market and looking at the wrong time, but they're never purchasing something, and they just have to commit. For a lot of those people, unfortunately, they have to realize they're never going to buy anything, and they need to stop stressing about it and just become either a rentvestor or just be a happy renter for the rest of your life. Property is resilient. This chart shows the median sale price of property over a 40-year period. So this is from December 1980 to December 2020. And it shows a 1,545% increase in prices in 40 years for Sydney. And for Melbourne, it was 2,056% during that 40 years time. It's just crazy, right? Where's the pullback, guys? Where's the unicorn here? Where's that 30% drop? Where are we getting in cheap? What's happening? I think 40 years of data, and we've got more, but I mean, it's for people that are buying now. 40 years of data is probably suggesting that, no, this market's not falling over. And if you look at 50 years, 60 years, 100 years of data from the US, the UK, etc., I think the same information is there for you. I wanted to quickly talk about why buyers fail and how we kind of guide them to success. Now, buyers fail because they don't establish a clear and objective brief. Which is a huge issue. They jump in straight away. They're looking at attending inspections straight away, but they're not clear on what they're trying to achieve. And the problem there is their delays actually create failures. The next thing is that buyers waste time. And this is a lot of time too. It takes buyers about 9 months to purchase property. When this market was really pumping in 2015, and I think we're in a similar space now actually, but in 2015, the average Sydney property price was increasing by $13,000 per month. Good luck saving. Good luck getting in there. Buyers make very expensive mistakes through lack of experience. I mean, most Australians buy 1 or 2 properties in their lifetime. As a buyer's agency, we've purchased over 2,000 in just the 16 years that we've been running now. And lastly, buyers don't conduct enough research. We've got a comprehensive checklist that we go through, but unfortunately Australians spend way too much time searching and just not enough time researching. This is the last thing I really want to show you, and I think it's quite interesting just in our experience, and I think everyone can relate to this. Looking at property online is not looking at property, okay? Unless you are in the car and you're looking at property every weekend, you're not looking at property. Those people that say, oh, we're pre-approved, but they haven't looked at any properties, they're not serious, okay? You've got 3 months typically of pre-approval, which is 12 Saturdays realistically to look at properties. Let's say you get through half of them. Let's say you do 6. You're not, but let's say you do 6 and life doesn't get in the way. You're doing an average of 2 properties a weekend. So you still, after 3 months, only seeing 12 properties. Buyer's agent will see 12 properties in 1 week. So advantage definitely goes to the buyer's agent. This is a property on domain or realestate.com. This is the property in real life. So you can see just some subtle differences there. Realestate.com, real life. That tree is obviously a lot more dominant, and the aspect where the sun is definitely not that right angle. Here's a beautiful, bright, natural light, large floor plan looks like unit. And this is what it looks like on realestate.com or Domain. This is what the property looks like in real life. All the lights are still on, etc., but it's definitely not as bright. And now you can see through that window, there's a building right there. This is one of our favorite ones that we like to show people. This is a commercial property because we do buy quite a lot of commercial for a lot of our clients. This is what the property looks like on realestate.com or Domain, and it did say on the advertisement, blank canvas. And I thought, well, that makes sense. You know, the furniture might be digital, it might be fake, but you know, you put up some petitions, you've got quite a few conference rooms there. It's got some potential. This is great. This is the property when we got there. So the only thing real about this first image are the doors. The ceiling, the floors, the walls, everything's fake. So I guess I just wanted to quickly put it out there that these days, you know, many successful Aussie buyers are getting professional help from buyers agents. Buying a good piece of real estate is an intense and competitive battle. So, you know, let a professional handle it for you. A good buyer's agent will definitely develop clients for life. And we've seen this as, you know, we help clients fulfill their property journey, and, you know, whether that's upgrading their homes or buying investments, you know, one by one. I mean, it's up to you. At the end of the day, I hope that this video has at least shown you, yes, you know, we get it right. And secondly, that don't believe the media headlines. Do your own research, get some information so that you can really understand what's going on with these markets. Anyway, Jay Pace from Providence Property Agents, thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you later.